Dear friends of IQ Latino, welcome to this interview today. We're kicking off the Hispanic Heritage Month, and we planned something very special for this month. And it's that we are interviewing Americans that love Spanish and Latino culture. And we're starting with a very, very special friend. She is Karen Kerbis, also known as La Gringa Novelera, and you're going to see why we call her like that. Karen, welcome. Thanks for accepting our invite.
No, muchas gracias, muy amable.
Qué bueno. Okay, first of all, we want to know who is Karen Kerbis or who was Karen Kerbis before being La Gringa Novelera.
Okay, so first, thank you for having me. It's really an honor, a true honor to be here. Karen Kerbis was a Chicago lawyer, a prosecutor, a gangs prosecutor, very busy prosecuting gang cases, working on investigations, and very happy. But clearly, something was missing because one night, about 10 years ago, I was living on my own in Chicago. It was winter. I was changing channels. This is before streaming, which shows you what a chance life can be sometimes. Streaming hadn't happened yet. I was looking for something on TV, and I stumbled on a telenovela called Corazón Valiente, Brave Heart. And, you know, I knew it was Telemundo. I knew it was a Spanish speaking station, and I thought I knew what telenovelas were. Pero there is this insanity on my screen where it looks like a baby is in charge of his own kidnapping based upon the interaction between the baby and the kidnappers in Colombia. And I thought, what is this? And I went back the next, and I had an old TV, so I couldn't get subtitles on it. So I had prosecuted kidnappings. Nothing about this kidnapping looked like any kidnapping I'd ever worked on. I went back the next night to see if I could figure it out, but I could not. And long story short, I went back every night. I found out later it was in the concluding episodes, Últimos Capítulos, where a crazy novella gets even crazier. And I just thought, I loved the world that I sort of fell into, really just accidentally, changing channels. It was a world that I didn't know was out there. I thought I knew what telenovelas were. I would have called them soap operas. I had no idea how not like how unlike a soap opera they were. Anyway, so that led to I, I I watched my first for novella from start to finish because my novella sensei at work, Irma, told me La Patrona was coming on next with the great Christian Bach and Araceli Arambula. And she said to watch it. And I did. And then every night, Irma and I would talk about it either on the phone or the next morning at work when I was supposed to be working on my gangs cases. I would go find Irma and we would talk about the episode. And I was just entranced. This is before streaming, before all of that. So the novella was just on Monday through Friday, 8 to 9, lunes a viernes. And I stopped making plans to go out if I could at all avoid it, because if you missed the episode, there was no opportunity like there is now to see it. And so I became so devoted to it. I was obsessed with it. I wouldn't answer my phone. And it was really all I could do to hang on, to try to follow what was going on. But I thought that I come there, my family is loaded with immigrants. I am, I guess, the second generation to be American born, but my grandparents and a gazillions of my cousins on both sides were all from other countries. And so and it turned out they had learned English watching, depending on their age, Friends or All My Children or whatever in English. And I thought, well, if they could learn English from Friends or All My Children, maybe I could learn Spanish from La Patrona. And I did, but it was like crazy Spanish, like because there are so many murders and everything. But anyway, I didn't really learn it, but I was learning and I'm still learning. Anyway, that moved into, I still was working as a prosecutor, but prosecuting gangs in Chicago seemed very dull after what was going on at La Patrona's Hacienda.
It, my first and obvious question here is, what did engage you in such a way with telenovelas? Because we Latinos, we have lived with telenovelas all our
Right.
life, and it's normal for us. But definitely, you see something different there that probably we don't see because we are used to see telenovelas. What did you see to say, "I'm not going out anymore at night.
Well,
I stay at
first of
home
all,
watching
sorry.
telenovelas."
There was nothing going on outside of my TV that was better than what was going on in my TV. I mean, I think, I, you know, a friend of mine who's actually from Cuba. I mean, she came here when she was born in Cuba or was born here. But if she came here as a little girl, she was really a little girl. And her theory was what that I really, unlike a person who's grown up with novellas, I really had to watch and pay attention. And when you watch and pay attention, they're really quite funny. I mean, there is a lot of humor that people do not see if they're not, if, well, now people look at their phones and everything. But if, I had to look for cues. And what drew me, I think, was like the passion, like as I'm looking for cues and I'm really paying attention to every word, every word, every conversation was at a pitch, such a high pitch. Maybe if you grew up experiencing that on TV, that every conversation was the most important conversation in the world. Um, whereas in a soap opera, they're very quiet, very dull. In a novella, there's not a quiet moment. I was really drawn to that, to the passion of every scene, to the fact that it seemed to me as I watched it, people never called for help. Like if there was somebody following you in a car, they didn't call 911. They like called their husband or they called somebody to come and like chase that car. The self-help I loved, especially as a prosecutor in a city where, some people call the police because their kids won't do their homework. And that's a true story, not an exaggeration. I mean, the Chicago police sometimes have to be babysitters for people. Um, in a novella, you don't call the police because they will definitely make your life worse. Number one, if you even involve the police. But so there was that. There was the absurd scenes of in La Patrona. She wanted to keep one of her sons drunk. So after he was locked up, she got to visit him in the jail and she brought a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue into the jail with her. And then she and her son sat around and drank. And I'm like, what kind of a jail is this? You know, the just every scene was so crazy, so unexpected. She had a daughter-in-law she didn't like. She locked her in the barn for a few days. I mean, people did things in that novellas I've never seen in my life, and I prosecuted gang murders, and yet even I was surprised by many of the crimes. The passion, like as soon as people meet in 5 minutes, Mirena, Mire, you're the love of my life. They just met. I just, so I think the heightened everything. And as you know, the first phrase that I learned from telenovelas was "¿Qué haces aquí?" What are you doing here? Because, and this to me is emblematic of telenovelas. Nobody ever says, hi, what's happening? It's always, what are you doing here? Apparently, nobody is ever where they're supposed to be because the greeting in a novella is "¿Qué haces aquí?" And I just loved it. I loved how preposterous it was, and so much fun and so exciting. And anyway, I suppose that's too long of an answer, but I will just say this last thing, which is that I was talking to a reporter from Mexico City one day, and I was telling him about all this. And he said he thought novellas gave me a sentimental education. And
Wow.
I really loved that because I think it did. I think it made me look at everybody. They make me look at everybody differently. And I don't know. I mean, I always think about that, a sentimental education. But I think he was onto something. But
Well, this engagement you got with telenovelas changed your life for the better.
yes, absolutely.
You made an appearance in a telenovela. There was a character named after you in a telenovela. You got your own documentary. You traveled to Mexico to write the telenovela of your dreams. I mean, you stopped being Karen Kerbis and started being Gringa Novelera. So,
Yes.
how did you feel yourself with such a twist? At some point, you were watching telenovelas in Chicago, and then you are at the Telemundo studios in Miami, sharing with the telenovela stars who
Yeah.
welcomed you. You took photos with them,
Yes.
I mean, so many unbelievable things happened to you after that. How did you feel with that twist in your life? Telenovela
It
twist for sure.
Well, yeah, like I would joke like my life feels like a telenovela. But what happened was when La Patrona ended, the next, as you know, it was different. Like Univision had three novellas a night, Telemundo had three novellas a night, and they started on different schedules. So I was sticking with Telemundo because if I would have switched to Univision, I would have either had to wait for a new novella or I would have been in the middle of one. So, long story short, I was going to watch the next novella, which was Santa Diabla. But Irma, my sensei, her mother was going to be coming to visit her from Texas. So Irma said, I can't watch Santa Diabla because my mother is watching Que Bonito El Amor on Univision. So Irma said to me, you'll have to watch La Patrona and tell me what's happening. And so I did. And again, still learning Spanish. I got, a lot of things wrong. But somebody at work thought the way I was describing what was happening was funny. Even if it was wrong, they thought it was funny. And I really wasn't trying to be funny. I was just saying this was what I saw happening. And I may have it wrong. So somebody suggested, I think just to shut me up, but they suggested I do a blog of what was happening. I started writing summaries on Facebook, and that's kind of where things broke because the writer of Santa Diabla started following Jose Valenzuela, El Chascas. He started reading what I was writing and commenting on it. And he didn't know, I did not have on that Facebook page, I was a prosecutor. No one knew anything about me. I didn't have a picture. I think my picture was of Jimena Duque and Aaron Diaz because I didn't want anybody to know about me, that I was a prosecutor trying cases. And in fact, one day, Chaskas wrote a note on a blog that said, this is so funny. If you ever come to Miami to do a comedy show, please let me know. I would come and see you. And I thought, he thinks I'm a comedian. And I almost wrote, well, I'll be giving a closing argument in a double homicide tomorrow. If which was an absolutely true story. Gracias a Dios, it was culpable. That was another thing. And I know we don't have the time to get into it, but the trials in telenovelas where people could just stand up and yell from the gallery, culpable, culpable, or no culpable. I was like, why can't I have a cheering section at my trials? But anyway, Chaska started following me, and then he was a big fan and he promoted what I was doing. And then when the next novella came, those writers, what happened was the writers of the telenovelas, more than anyone really, really seemed to appreciate what I was doing. And I wasn't, I really was writing for me because I really had no one to talk to about how great telenovelas were. So I really was doing it for myself, and Irma, because she got a kick out of it. But little by little, my followers came from like the Spanish speaking world, because they're the people that love novellas and watch them, and they really got a kick out of what I was doing. And there's really very little written in English about telenovelas. It's very hard to find anything. And so that escalated to getting a call from Joshua Mintz, who at that time was like the head of Telemundo, um, inviting me down to Miami to be on the red carpet at the premiere of one of the new novellas. And it was like my life was changing before my eyes. I mean, and when I met people from telenovela from Novellaville, from that world, and I told them I was a gang prosecutor in Chicago. Like Joshua Mintz didn't believe it at first. He found me at work to confirm that I was who I said I was, a gang prosecutor. And I think that's because, like in Latin America, prosecutors unfortunately get killed a lot, and it's taken as a job. That responsibility is taken very seriously. I can tell you clearly, I wasn't taking things too seriously at all, but I'd been doing that work for a long time. Of course, I took my cases seriously, but it wasn't like anybody was going to kill me ever, except maybe the people I worked with for talking too much about telenovelas. But anyway, yeah, I was on El Rojo Vivo, I was on Que Noche, and I felt very welcomed, so welcomed. I mean, by the people who make telenovelas because they really seem to get a kick out of it, and I loved it. And I just the more it happened, it was like a drug. Like I wanted, let's go to Telemundo again, and I did have a walk on and Quienes Quien, thanks to Vicente Albarracin, the director, and Ruben Morales, who got me in. And anyway, I could, tell you a million stories about all those events. And I realized I couldn't be a prosecutor anymore. I just couldn't do it. So I decided to leave my job because I had an idea for a movie, which has turned into an idea for a TV series, but it's called Olivia. And basically, it's a fantasy version of my story, about a girl, a woman who just not a gringa who falls in love with telenovelas. Anyway, and we're pitching that. We're trying to sell that now. It's got a twists and turns and novella twists and turns and crime. And anyway, it's got everything, but it's inspired by telenovelas. And it's not a parody, it's a love letter because I feel like everything I do it's a love letter to telenovelas. And that's how we met.
And that's how we met. That's correct. So thank you. Thanks, Telenovelas, because I could meet Karen Kerbis, aka La Gringa Novelera.
Thank
But
you. Oh, and I'm sorry.
no, no, please go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is that name, because I really have to give credit where credit is due for the Gringa Novelera name. My friend Irma, so her mother was, living with Irma for a while. She would split her time between Texas and Chicago, but she was from Mexico. And she asked Irma to ask me what had happened in an episode of La Patrona, because she had missed it. And Irma said, Ma, she doesn't speak Spanish. She's not going to know. And Mrs. Lopez said, No, she's a gringa novelera. She understands everything. She'll know what happened. And I just thought I love that name so much that when I was trying to figure out what to use for a Facebook page for a blog, I went with La Gringa Novelera. It's a tribute to Irma and her mother, Senora Lopez.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I didn't know where
Yeah.
the Gringa Novelera name come from. Karen, this is the key question of this interview now.
Okay.
After being La Gringa Novelera for so many years, sharing with telenovela talent and stars and learning about Latino culture, what's your takeaway? What's your perception of Latino people and Latino culture at this stage of your life after sharing so many things with us? Because you and I shared, and we have share friends in common. We have shared with, and I would like to know how an American, all American girl like you perceive Latino culture in the US and beyond, because you even live in Mexico for some years. So, how do you see Latino culture today?
I see Latino culture even more positively than I saw it my whole life. I mean, like I said, my best friend growing up was her family was Cuban. So I was exposed to, a certain aspect of Latino culture. Then I worked in the criminal courts, which is in La Villita, which is a very Mexican neighbor, a very Mexican influenced neighborhood, Chicago. In fact, that's where the Independence Day parade usually is. But they had the parade, but things were quiet because of what's going on right now, politically. But so working for years in a Latino neighborhood, being exposed from childhood to at least Cuban, culture, um, I've always had a super positive view of Latinos. I've loved Latinos, and I'm because my mother's family was from Italy, different cultures, but not so different. There's some similarities. Certainly, I was exposed to that kind of passion, but I, what has happened with the Latinos really embracing me and embracing what I do. I will tell you, I can't tell you how many gringos, and that's what I'll call them, will say, well, aren't you, don't you feel like you're appropriating Latino culture writing about telenovelas? Like that's their number one worry, that I'm appropriating Latino culture. And I never felt that I was because number one, gringo was in my name. So I wasn't kidding anybody. I am a white girl who loves novellas, not Spanish. Um, and I'm not stealing any or appropriating anything. This is a love letter. But I never, ever got that kind of a question from the people who make novellas, who write novellas, who direct them, who act in them, and who watch them. No one on that side of the table has ever accused me or suggested I'm doing something wrong by writing about telenovelas. They love it and they take it for what it is, which is a love letter to that industry. And as this journalist said in Mexico City, it's given me a sentimental education. And it has just opened my eyes and opened my heart even bigger than they were before. And it's when you, and then living in Mexico and seeing the history and the culture and the food and the design and the architecture. I think Mexico City is one of the greatest cities on earth. And I loved it. I couldn't have loved it more than I did. And I loved living in Mexico. And I even brought my dog back with me from Mexico, La Chiflada. Uh,
Chilita,
Shailita, see.
Chilita.
Um, but she adopted me. But no, I to say I love Latino culture is sort of an understatement, but I think what I love more than anything is how they have welcomed me into their world. And by the way, my Spanish was so bad when I was living in Mexico, but I tried. And people opened their hearts to me, and they were like, no, no, it's very good. I mean, it was not very good, but people were very kind about my Spanish and we're so happy that I had decided to make Mexico my home. It's just been super welcoming, and they've been super welcoming, and I couldn't love it any more than I do.
Excellent. One more question before
Sure.
wrapping up, but I cannot say goodbye to you tonight
Mhm.
if I don't ask you to speak some Spanish, especially the Spanish you learned from telenovelas. Besides, ¿qué haces aquí? Your most famous line that gave name to the documentary about you. What other lines do you remember from telenovelas?
Oh gosh, uh, uh well,
Oh, there
me
is a story. There is a story.
yes.
Let me remind
Okay.
you of a story. What do you have to say about Tengo Sed?
Oh. Well, Tango said, I know now means I'm thirsty. Um, and then there's Tango hambre, which means I'm hungry. But I used to, when I would leave for court, I would say to Irma, oh, Tango hambre. And Irma goes, that means I have a man. What are you trying to say? I'm like, oh, Tango hambre, not hombre. I got so many things wrong. But I wish no te atreves, right? Don't you dare. No
Uh-huh.
te atreves. Lárgate. Vete. Yeah, me voy. Like knock at the door. Yeah, me voy. Just it's or matame. You take the gun. Somebody's pointing a gun at you. You take the gun and you put it to your own temple and go matame. Yeah, matame. The best. And I wish I could remember. I think it was one of the Senora Acero. There were many seasons of Senora Acero. But I think it was in that show where the police had guns on some guy, and he took the guns by the barrel and went like this with both guns and went, yeah, mata me, yeah. I'm like, this is so fantastic. I wouldn't recommend it at home, trying it at home, kids. But yeah, just, mire, oh, el amor de mi vida. Oh, yeah, just mi reina, te amo, te quiero, lárgate, te odio.
No doubt your Spanish is very passionate.
Very dramatic, muy dramatico. But I also love que tal. Like you can never go wrong with a que tal. And ojalá. um, and then aguas,
Aguas. Yeah.
which comes from the old days of chamber pot contents. This is what I was told in Mexico.
Uh-huh.
Aguas, which means look out, but it comes from the old days when people would toss the contents of their chamber pots out the window.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it.
Yes, I learned that. And then I also, and you might know this expression, you might have taught it to me. It's not a novella expression, but it's a showbiz expression. Mucha mierda,
Oh,
right?
sí. In
You taught
Spanish.
me that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just, but the best is still, I'm sorry, KSSIK. And in fact, in Velvet, which is in its últimos capítulos now, in the first episode, they had like 30 KSSIKs. Like, I think they said it 30 times. And one of the writers said they did it for me. So I was very flattered
Oh, okay.
because they knew how much I love KSSIK. I mean, a kid comes home from school. The kid comes home from school, and the mother says KSSIK. The kid's like, I live here.
Yeah, I heard you. I think it was in your documentary that you say it looks like in telenovelas, everybody's misplaced.
Right, right. They're not supposed to. Nobody is where they're supposed to be. It's always, and nobody just says hello. I mean, we all say like hola, thinking we're speaking Spanish in Chicago, hola. But no, if you really want to say hello, say que haces aquí, because that's really how people seem to say hello in telenovelas.
Oh, by the way, this is the very last question
Sure.
because we need already to wrap up. But let us know where we can see your documentary. ¿Qué haces aquí?
Oh, thank you. The documentary is now on YouTube, and it's called KSSIK, a documentary about Karen, because there's a few different things that are called KSS Aki, and but this is KSS Aki, a documentary about Karen. It's on YouTube. It was a film festival favorite. It played at film festivals all over the country, and the filmmaker, his name is Rob Brook. He got a ton of positive feedback about it, a lot of invitations to different film festivals and different uh, I don't know, tributes and things like that. And so it's there, and it's about 25 minutes, and it explains a little bit more about how this all happened. But it happened because the people in Telenovelaville, such as yourself, um, they liked what I was doing, and they're the ones who made all this happen. And anyway, my dream outside of getting Olivia, sold, my dream is that really Americans would give no telenovelas a chance. It's like soccer. Like, soccer's super popular all over the world, except not quite as popular in America. I mean, it's more popular. But people love melodrama. They, and they just if they love melodrama like they love Yellowstone. Well, Yellowstone, if you watch it, there's more melodrama in that show than a lot of novellas I could mention. um but it's in English. Give another language a chance, and they will not be disappointed. That's they will fall in love with telenovelas. I really want to be, and I have tried to be, a messenger to the English speaking world about telenovelas. Like, you got to watch them. There's nothing better. And I wish we could go back to the glory days of Telemundo airing them 3 times a night and Univision airing them 3 times a night. Um, and I miss the days when we all had to watch them at the same time. Now with streaming, I don't, it's not everybody's on the same page. And I liked when everybody was on the same page. And when you wonder in Santa Diabla who chopped Mr. Kano's head off and put it on a platter at the dinner table. Was it Carlos Ponce or Aaron Diaz? Which one of his sons cut his head off and served it for dinner? You know, anyway,
We are closing just inviting people to see your ¿Qué haces aquí? Documentary.
thank you.
We are going to post the link in this interview in YouTube. And I just want to thank you for this conversation. It was a great time to
Oh,
kick off the Hispanic Heritage Month.
thank you. It was my pleasure. El placer es mío. That's probably Italian. But
Yeah,
me
that's correct.
gusta mucho.
El placer es mío. Uh-huh.
Oh, good. Okay. Que
Yeah.
bueno. Once in a while, I get it right. But in fact, I did a podcast from Mexico called My Mexican Mistakes because I moved to Mexico without speaking Spanish and without understanding the metric system. And it was a recipe for some disasters, but I had a lot of fun making mistakes. So once in a while, I get it right. Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor. And thank you for your friendship over the years. It was so great to meet you and Eduardo and become friends. And we had a great time together.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, and let's stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Gracias. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego. Nos vemos.
Nos vemos. Adios.
Adiós.